What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Pens and Tea. My name is Carrie, and today we are talking about a English breakfast tea and the Delta Serena. This is the kind of tea that puts you in a great mood, inspires harmonious relationships, and makes you outrageously productive. Could there be any better way to start your day? Could there be any more of a generic description? So this basically tells you nothing about the tea. But it is a breakfast tea. So I don't know if you've watched a video that I've done in the past on the Noodlers, Ahab, and Conrad when I talked about a Irish afternoon tea. And in that I briefly talked about how there are English, Irish, and Scottish blends of breakfast, afternoon, and dinner teas. Basically what that means is that it's like how strong the tea is. So Scottish, anything, is going to be the strongest, then Irish, then English. Breakfast will be the strongest flavor, afternoon will be medium, and then dinner will be the lightest flavor. So this being David's breakfast, breakfast tea, it's kind of like an English breakfast tea, is just their version of it. But essentially it's the same thing. So English is the third on the tier, so it's going to be weaker than Irish and Scottish. But breakfast is the first, so it's going to be stronger than afternoon or dinner. It's a lot to kind of keep in your head. I'm sorry. But essentially breakfast, it's supposed to replace your coffee. So it does have a relatively high caffeine content. So again, those that are sensitive may want to stick to the dinner version, which is going to have significantly less caffeine. It's also not going to be as strong and in your face because this is a strong tea. It's not overpowering, but if you have like an orange pekoe or anything like that, then this is stronger. This has a much more hearty flavor. Same thing as pretty much any other black tea. You're going to take about a teaspoon and maybe a quarter. Put it into whatever you're using to steep your tea. You can do a full rolling boil with this guy and then steep it for about 4 to 7 minutes. I would recommend maybe going 3 to 4 minutes because like I said, this one packs a punch. But if you really, really, really like strong teas, then maybe let it steep for a little bit more. Like I said, this one, it tastes similar to an orange pekoe. There's a little bit of a difference, but similar to an orange pekoe, but much stronger than an orange pekoe. And there's almost like a slightly floral edge to this one. But I mean, the ingredients is literally just black tea from India and Nepal. That's it. So there's not a whole lot of added flavoring to it. But because it is basic, it's one of the least expensive teas that you can get, and it's $4.98 for 50 grams. This one I like to have just kind of in the back of my closet for any time I want that kind of punch in the face. I don't drink coffee, so this is my like coffee-esque type, when you need that little bit of a pick-me-up. So that is English breakfast, David's breakfast tea from David's Tea. I've paired that one with the Delta Serena. This one in particular is their blue finish, which I'll show you in a close-up. It looks much better. And it's now $108 from Goulet Pens, and with Canadian pricing that puts it roughly about $135. It is a steel nib, so once you get over the $100 for steel, I start to kind of question it. But I thought, you know what, Delta has a pretty good reputation. I watched a few videos out there floating around in the YouTube land, and they were all pretty positive. And the common theme amongst them all was that they're fairly wet writers, which is the majority of what I look for. So I thought, I'll grab it. And there are a good amount of pros to this pen. The first one is that it is a standard international cartridge converter pen. So you can use pretty much anything you want, and it does come with a Delta branded converter, but you can use any regular converter with it. So that's cool. You can use bottled ink, cartridge pens for you. You cannot eyedropper convert it though, because it does have metal threads. I don't think that should be a deal breaker. The material is beautiful. I absolutely love the shimmer chatoyance of the material. So I really dig that. And it does have a rollerball clip. So the clip itself is pretty decent as far as the spring. And if you lift it up just a little bit, you can actually roll the rollerball all the way around. So supposedly that makes it easier to put on and off of shirts or jean pockets or anything like that. I don't really ever do that, so it's not a big deal, but I just kind of like the look of it. And it is a screw top and push to post. And it posts pretty securely. Like I said, I don't typically post mine, but it's good to go either way. For me, though, there are a lot of negatives associated with this pen. The nib came to me fairly scratchy. The tines weren't, they weren't like crazy splayed apart, but they weren't aligned. So I had to fix that. And the one thing that probably bothers me the most is that the nib and the housing don't line up. So inside the breather hole of the nib, you're supposed to have the feed perfectly aligned or as close as you can get. And this one is just so off-centered. And I have tried many, many things to get them to line up, and they just don't ever. And because of that, mine's probably one of the rare Deltas that is, I wouldn't call it a dry writer, but it's certainly not like a wet writer like everyone, like all the other reviews that I read said that they were. So that kind of bugs me a little bit. And the metal, it's kind of like a coated plastic metal-ish grip section. It's kind of short and stubby for my liking. So my thumb ends up sitting back to where the threads are, and the threads don't bother me, but this step up does. So that step up where the cap is gonna kind of close into is relatively sharp. So my thumb feels that, and after a while it gets annoying. So I would like the grip section to be longer, and it is slightly slick as well. And then just a nitpicky thing that bothers me. It's when you unscrew the body from the nib unit, it squeaks. And that's just something that kind of like irks me a little bit. So, spoilers to the end of the video. Just based purely on this pen that I've used alone, I wouldn't recommend anyone to pick it up. Just based on my experience of these. But like I said, I've read and seen a lot of other reviews where people really like this pen. So I think maybe I just got a dud, who knows? But that's my 2 cents about this in particular pen. Let's jump into the writing sample, and I'll show you what I mean by kind of wet, kind of dry. So this nib is smooth now. Like I said, I had to do a little bit of work on this one as far as like the smoothness goes. This is Clairefontaine paper, by the way, with Noodler's 54th Massachusetts ink, and it is a medium Delta nib. I'm really digging this ink, by the way. I didn't think I would, but that's a whole other party. This pen, you can get a little bit of line variation from, but it's very finicky for me as far as flow goes, because, like I said earlier, the slit from the feed and the breather hole of the nib don't stay aligned very often for me. I have to constantly move the feed around, and I mean, I've completely taken this apart and like tried to put it back together, but it just never sits very long in the right place. So right now, you know, I've got it okay. This isn't a super wet ink, so, you know, even if it was a little bit wetter than that, it's not a super wet pen, which I was expecting, only because a lot of the other reviews and videos that I've seen of it, you know, mentioned how wet this pen was, but that's not been my experience anyways. Reverse writing, you definitely can, and it will go actually for a fairly good amount of time. and it's not really all that scratchy. It's not as smooth as, you know, the regular side, but it's definitely not scratchy doing that. And you could probably go to a fine down from the medium, maybe even like an extra fine. I wouldn't go like super extra, but it gets pretty good. The pen is a little bit drier in the upstroke than the downstroke, but that's pretty much been my experience with the majority of my pens. Like I said, right now it's fairly wet, so it's not too bad. Depending on the depending on the ink that I use, will depend whether or not I get skips or hard starts. Sometimes I'll get more hard starting than skipping, but like I said, I think it's all down to the fact that no matter what I try, I can't get the feed aligned with the breather hole. That could be just a random glitch of mine, because like I said, most of the other things are positive that I've seen from other people, but that's been my experience. So I wouldn't purchase this again anyways, but if you are interested in the pen, because I mean physically it's gorgeous, I would maybe reach out to the retailer and just ask if they can double check that the nib is aligned with the feed. But other than that, it's pretty cool. So guys, if you like this video, hit that thumbs up button. If you really like the video and you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. I make videos every Monday and Friday. And as always, do not be afraid to leave any questions, comments, or concerns down in the comment section below. I read them all and I try to answer them all as quickly as I possibly can. Awesome. I will see you guys next time. Bye.